Oblivion, the fourth Elder Scrolls game, is my introduction to the franchise, next along with Daggerfall, as well as the two being one of my favorite Elder Scrolls games. It's amusing since they both share a bunch of things with each other. One of the things unique to Oblivion, however, has to be the forest, the game being one of the few to make me appreciate good video game forests. Some may say they are generic looking, but I say they nail the atmosphere that is hard for other games to replicate. I would have to guess the excessive bloom adds to the dreamlike fantasy tone and makes forest even more pleasant to watch, even if it makes every human look like staring into a nuclear explosion. But that's all subjective. What can be said that is objective, and what Remaster tried to remedy a bit, is the harsh level scaling the game has. I think it's good to differentiate that we're talking about level scaling, not leveling. This may confuse people, so I'm going to take a moment to explain about it. Leveling is when you level up in the game and power up your character, not the world adjusting to your current level. I read accusation of leveling being flawed too, but when those words come from people who are fans of Morrowind, I feel the presence of double standard, since that game uses the exact similar leveling. Arguably, my preference is always on how Daggerfall did leveling. You get to put points where you want to. But even that can be immersion breaking and against the leveling system Bethesda implemented in general, where you increase your effectiveness of skills and attributes by doing it. There had been made mods to replace leveling system altogether to traditional experience system, but I feel that the increased skills through usage method fares better over the traditional experience system, as that just doesn't mesh well with the brain. Take example Fallout. I make two factions to cease fire and go away neutrally, and get XP from that quest to level up, so naturally I put points into my gun skill because negotiation and talking with my mouth makes me a better gunslinger, right? Now granted, bad leveling can make level scaling even worse issue, but I dare to say Oblivion doesn't have bad leveling, just bad level scaling. Despite a lot of guides favoring for you to min-max or play the game unintuitive way, I see following through these methods robs progression, since you do end up maxing out attributes way early that way than playing normally. And you know what? Maxing out leveling doesn't help you out in slightest with the level scaling. So finally, what's wrong with level scaling in Oblivion? It is quite simple. The game is rather aggressive on matching scaling to your level. That means when you level up past a few levels or more, a lot of older, weaker stuff like items, NPCs or creatures disappear, save for hand-placed spots. Now to clarify, level scaling does not mean that you end up encountering level 30 rats or such, since only certain creatures and NPCs do level up with you. Sadly, the ones that do level up with you tend to be health and damage hogs. This is the problem hitting high enough levels. You cannot increase your damage output, enemies cannot increase their damage output, but the health keeps raising up a lot, which leads to the point that fight seems to drag on endlessly. It also spawned a rather infamous highwaymen who are carrying the most powerful tired gear in their inventory. What was the point where I started to notice level scaling being an issue? When I reached Oblivion and fought Xivili, one of the only Daedric creatures that level scale with you and ends up being one of the most tankiest and damaging creature in the game as a result. Even for me, who is quite stubborn and finds repetitive things tolerable, couldn't disagree that scaling is an issue. It's worth mentioning I've gone through various level scaling editing mods, but I always felt they robbed away from the sandbox experience of the Oblivion. The game was after all designed by people with a slogan,
"Go where you want, do whatever you want."
and it kind of robs the sense of wonder, let alone making repeated playthroughs similar. More power to you if you like these overhauls, but I never saw fit to look for Morrowind experience, more akin of the previous game, Daggerfall. Again, these two games share similarities, and one of the things that I really do love about Daggerfall is how random it can be, as in you never know what to expect. And well, then came out 12th September of 2012, and Maskar's Oblivion Overhaul was created. Part of the reason I started my whole mod recommendation series by this mod was because nobody seemed to talk about it. Time sure does fly and the mod has finally get views. But let's talk about what makes Maskar's Overhaul so great. Maskar's Oblivion Overhaul did level scaling different that I haven't seen any other mod recreate before him. Difficulty of encounters affects how far away you are from civilization. It's simple and works much better than having everything to level with you, or going to the opposite end with static spawns, where there's a chance dungeon nearby a town happens to be filled with high level enemies you cannot tackle. It gives semblance of natural border when you go further away from safe areas and see where things start to get harder than you can take them on. As I said back there, at higher levels near the cap, where you or enemies don't do any more damage, Maskar provided a fairly mundane solution, an universal damage increaser which by default is doubled. Doing double damage ends up being a curve that initially makes you look weaker, as you may die easily to a simple mud grab, but by the end of the game, you are capable of one-shotting various foes that have given you issues early in the game. That damage can be boosted with Slayer weapon mechanic. Different materials deal more damage to different enemies. Elven is good against animals, silver on undead and wisps, glass for light armor, and ebony for heavy armor, you get the idea. And on topic of damage multipliers, sneak attack multipliers got amped up too. With high enough sneak skill and appropriate stealthy weapon like dagger, you can deal up to 12 times more damage. Double that with Dark Brotherhood outfit for 24 multiplier. Don't think you can replicate stealth archer build from Skyrim that fast, thanks to variety of other AI enhancements the overhaul brings with it. AI had been overhauled by giving various features, both for easier and harder time to player. One of the brightest thing is that NPCs are more likely to carry a torch around darkness or nighttime based on the light levels, which makes sneaking around NPCs harder, especially as they love to move around, another addition to their tactics. Normally, it's fairly obvious on repeated playthroughs to know exactly where enemy spawns are located, but Maskar made NPCs now more active, capable of moving around in different spots than just at their spawn points. And no, you cannot just aggro one NPC at a time by staying away from radius, as Maskar fixed that one by making nearby NPCs to also go into combat with the original aggressor and look up to your general direction. Other miscellaneous edits are allowing more than just 2 enemies to go through a door, allowing more than 10 actors to engage in combat, enemies specializing in restoration capable of healing others, and trying to pelt enemies from high ground just makes them climb up to you to make sure you're not untouchable. But while AI is made from smart to engage in combat with the player, they also are given capability to flee at low health. Think of Skyrim NPCs surrendering at the last silver of their health, but instead of dropping to their knees, they run away and alert every one of their allies to player's presence, and you have a whole lot of new people to deal with. And this is just normal NPCs. There are special occasions such as mudcrabs capable of stealing your weapon and damaging your armor a whole lot, minotaurs headbutting you, zombies coming back from the dead, and vampires possessing massive health regeneration, which can be halted either with silver material or by sunlight, both natural and artificial. All in all, not only AI was improved, but they were given few abilities to differentiate them from each other a whole lot. Speaking about differentiation, Maskar's Overhaul comes with new creatures and NPCs alike, to enrich the game world from stagnation of same recurring enemy type syndrome. One of the things is that there are now existing new tiers of banditry, for easy, normal and harder fights, and progressively having better tiered gear. It provides a way to tell groups from each other and tier them in a meaningful way. One of the changed things is a regional spawns. This locks some creatures or NPCs only to spawn around a different region, so for example mummies spawn around Hammerfell border, Skyrim borders have mammoths and giants, and ghouls are spawning near Morrowind. This also extends to simple zombies and skeletons, as they come in different races as well. There's also a rare chance to encounter a rare spawn of a creature, giving a tougher fight and unique look, but also better loot as compensation. Oh yeah, and I can't gush about this enough, the mod does add mimics. Personally, I am amazed that Maskar managed to pull off and make it so that there is a chance a chest you open might be a mimic instead. In a weird paradox way, a generic staple RPG monster becomes distinct in the Elder Scrolls. While difficulty boils down to how far you are from a town, there's also an additional modifier, the power of the Imperial Legion. This is lowered by time and ongoing invasions, and it showcases itself by replacing spawn points around the region with said enemies belonging to invasions. Means of handling it are by defeating invasive creatures or letting it pass on its own. And to that end, there are regional factions, which player is capable of to join as well. Their strength is based on amount of NPCs that are spawned, and like with Legion, killing their members causes their power to grow weaker. To add to that complexity, when faction has strong presence in region, new NPCs start to spawn in said regions, such as Frost Witches in Skyrim, Cannibals in Valenwood, or Slavers around Morrowind. In addition, some factions can make up alliances between each other, so that previously hostile factions could be instead in friendly terms. When player joins into a regional faction or Imperial Legion, that is also a possibility, they are given a rank, which is increased by killing hostile NPCs, or in latter's case solving notice board crimes. Currently, rank only affects how many members of faction can join to your squad. In order to join the former though, player needs a faction scape to identify as them. Of course, having no negative relations is required to equip said cape. This faction system is engaging, but also means of making the world feel more dynamic and active, and for me, it gives some meaning towards NPC chatter when they always ask about the latest news from the other provinces and said news turns out to be worrisome or warmongering like. That covers portion of level scaling, but there's still the important thing to talk about, the loot. Given that now NPCs are tired, it means that they have loot respective to their strength, rather than start possessing higher equipment just because you hit high enough level. But it also had been expanded with foods and drinks, and potential items based on their environment, so if there is an iron vein nearby, they may carry iron ore in their inventory. To make spellcasting much more easier and not be just forced to buy spells from merchants, Maskar's Overhaul gives a chance to replace scroll loot with spellbooks. It is loosely similar to Spelltome's DLC, but usage is different, as you instead cast and use the spells book to learn the spell rather than read it. And it also covers nearly all the spells. Locked containers also have a slim chance of containing additional treasury, the chance based on lock's level, which also has been fixed not to level scale with you. Previously, getting high enough level meant every lock would become very hard in dungeons, but now it follows same routine as dynamic scaling. And to make things trickier, locked chest may contain a trap, requiring a skill check to see if you can disarm the trap without activating it. Because letting trap destroy the valuable loot means less money from trading when back in town, let alone if you survive the trap itself. Speaking about trading, merchants were giving a makeup. No more merchants have infinite set money, neither do they level scale. Their merchandise is actually based on their respective skill, so higher skilled merchants offer better goods, obviously with more harsh prices. There's also been made few tweaks to some merchants. In older versions of the mod, all merchants could potentially sell the stuff Maskar's mod adds. Now it has been sprinkled to different merchants. Horse sellers specialize on pet accessories, house upgrade sellers can sell deeds from various buildings or furniture, and fences can sell out placeable traps and regional faction capes. It's actually quite good changes here, especially with limited gold, as it means the player is more likely to visit other stores than default to only few selected ones to sell their loot, therefore potentially browsing for other goods and seeing out something they normally may not see. Alright, it's time to address the elephant in the room. Version 5 of Maskar's Overhaul added, dare I say finally, a lycanthropy system. Actual NPCs that may spawn as werewolves, with their own distinctive powers, a werewolf invasion during a Blood Moon event, and potential for a player to also become werewolf. A missed feature that sadly every other Elder Scrolls games got it right. The way to play as werewolf, however, is more of traditional RPG way of getting XP from feeding enemies and powering up your werewolf heart. Or if you have found, totems which you can equip and boost your abilities. And yes, you can get Hairsign's ring to control transformation, but more akin of acting as a blocker rather than allowing for manual transformation. There's still a lot Maskar's Oblivion Overhaul does, but considering most focus was on the level scaling here and that has been addressed, I'm gonna go fast and loose with other things Maskar's Overhaul has on it. Each city now contains a notice board. This is where you can see out details ranging from sold houses, creatures that invade the region, stolen or lost items, or wanted NPCs. As a funny Easter egg, you could potentially end up on a notice board as well, if having high enough bounty. Skill-based equipment balances finding higher tier loot earlier if pushed to it, as you need high enough skill level in armor or weapon to equip them, optionally also for magic staves. Diseases were overhauled to have 3 tiers and come in 2 forms of contact, one through attack or one being in presence of a character, indicated by a putrid cloud surrounding them. Mines and caves has been filled with mineral metal veins that you can mine with a pickaxe, resulting you mining titular ore of said vein, with some nasty quirks every now and then. Treasure maps are exactly as said on the tin, maps leading to a treasure that you have to dig to find some extra loot. Also regarding the locks with the chests, you don't have to lockpick them. A good smack with strong enough character is also another viable way to open locks. You can feign death in means of ending combat and escaping from a tricky situation, though weirdly enough it requires you to break the line of contact with enemy for it to succeed well. And you don't have to chuck potions or spam restoration spells to heal yourself up constantly, that is where bandages come into play. The player also has ability to tame creatures based on their personality and speech graph determining how many powerful creatures one can get for themselves. And yes, this means a walk-in storage container mimic or having your own flying dragon to use. Quality of life feature regarding harvesting comes in a form of a sickle, which can harvest ingredients from large area around player. Imbuement tool is another quality of life tool which allows you to upgrade quest rewards that are by default level scaling as well. Dungeons by default are much darker than before, necessitating usage of light sources or spells. The world is filled with traveling adventurers that can act as companions, each with their unique traits, class and own playstyle, just like with player. They need some high relations or high enough level for them to join to your adventure. I ignored this in the original video, but there is a dedicated crafting system in the mod as well. Crafting arrows, armor, furniture, houses, decoration, etc. I won't lie, it is a bit janky with execution, but it works and does wonders. Then there's also dynamic events, a potential chance to the game world to spawn ship ruins, outpost towers, new actors, extensions to dungeons and campsites. The higher chance for them to come is usually beyond the world borders, giving some reason to go beyond the border, even if the game world is not as detailed. Lastly, regarding Oblivion realms themselves, while they are still repetitive, the fixes with the level scaling are addressed, and there's some motivation to go into them thanks to revamped sickle stones that are more powerful the more you've progressed through main quest, and cursed items that hold really strong enchantments in exchange of having debuff enchantments. Oh, and there's Borakton, the Morrowind faction, which you can join if you do Daedric Princess Mephala's quest. Sadly, they are very easy to make hostile by either joining regional faction or Dark Brotherhood, so I ended up most of the time having them as hostile.
Sorry.
And as a final note to say just here at the end, Maskar's Oblivion Overhaul is also brilliant thanks to configuration it has. Those features that I just listed, you can edit them out through a text file. Suppose you don't like skill requirements on weapons and armor, well you just turn it off from the text file. Suppose you are not fond of idea of invasions happening in Cyrodiil, well you just turn it off from the text file. Suppose you treat Elder Scrolls lore like a Bible, and a sight of Mimic and Dragon makes you weep and cry, well you just turn them off from the text file. Yes, it says a lot that nearly all the features listed here can be turned off, on, or changed to different things you may prefer instead, which is a lot more than what other overhaul mods do. Granted, this may not seem so groundbreaking what's with the latest games and mods coming with various configuration options, but back when this was released, being capable to fine-tune an overhaul mod from all of its features, now that was unheard of. And it's why this mod remains the most favorite mod for Oblivion, ever. Can't stop gushing about it whenever possible. You have level scaling that had been giving up a new spin, more intelligent enemy behavior and diversifying them with new abilities, more varied content, and many unique features that one would see more as a standalone mods. It makes the Cyrodiil feel like a living world where stuff happens, and you can participate on it. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to support this channel, you can give me a coffee through a link in description. Have a good day.